Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight we are looking at the worst Yes album on the planet. Well, maybe. We'll see. The album Heaven and Earth. We're going to analyze it. The panel's here. Let's do it.
Talking bands no one talks about. Grant's Rock Warehouse.
Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight we are going to talk about the 21st studio album of progressive rock band Yes. Now, this album is a bit of a controversial subject. Some people like this record, some people don't. For the most part, the critics kind of had a field day with this and didn't really rate this all that high. But this is the last album with Chris Squire, because he shortly passed away after this. And this is the first record with vocalist John Davidson. So for the most part, we've got an entire quote unquote real Yes lineup. We've got Steve Howe, Chris Squire, Alan White. We've got Jeff Downs. I mean, we're looking good. I'll get to my thoughts on this record when we get to me, but I do want to welcome the panel tonight. BM Bolt, Todd Evans, and of course Rand Kelly is here. Tonight we're going to start out with Todd Evans. So we're going to run this a bit like a Contrarians Dark Horse. So what I would like you to do, each member of the panel, is briefly give a review, what you like, what you don't like, and I would love to get your rating out of 10. So at the end, we will compile it. And the goal is, well, you know, on this channel, we're trying to turn you on to things, but is this a Yes album worthy of your acceptance, so to speak? So anyway, so Byron, Todd, and Rand, I'm going to start out with Todd Evans. And I don't know what Rand's doing. It's some kind of medallion or a CD. He gets very excited on these shows because everyone knows Yes is Rand's favorite band. So we'll see what Rand had to say about this one. So Todd Evans, welcome to the show. What's your thoughts on Heaven and Earth?
Okay, well, I'd like to start out my presentation with a dramatic reading from Davison Squire. This is an excerpt from In a World of Our Own. Why must you always lie to me? I know for sure you're going to reap what you sow. You can whet your appetite anywhere as long as you do your cooking at home. And with that starts my review of Heaven and Earth. When this album came out, I was kicked off of the Yes Facebook page because somebody mentioned the song Believe Again, and I replied to them by saying, wait till you hear the rest of it, because somehow I got to hear it early. But here's my issue with this album, and I'm going to talk about some things that I like about this album when I get towards the end. But my main, well, first, let me talk about Believe Again first, okay? Believe Again is barely worthy of about 3.5 minutes. By the time you get to about 7:30, you're like, oh, come on, you guys. You can't be serious with dragging this out to 8:01. But they do. Then the game comes along and you think, oh, okay, an outside writer, some guy named Jared Johnson. Maybe this one will be a better song. It's a little better. Step Beyond, man, I don't know what they were thinking there. And one of the things that really bothers me about this record, and I'll kind of segue to some of the things I like about it, is that it almost seems like Jeff Downs is not even there. When he plays, it sounds like it could be anybody. I think that by the time you get to the last track, Subway Walls, which I think is the best track, which I actually think is quite good. It's got, I mean, Jeff Downs is a good songwriter, and he's great with melodies. And I wish his name was on some more of these. But by the time you get there, then you're like, oh, okay, well, that sounds like Jeff Downs. I think Light of the Ages is a pretty good song. Although I do have to say that if you're in Yes, and John Davidson wrote this song, and you're going to write a song called Light of the Ages, it better, with a title like that, it better be good. And it's pretty good. But it's not quite good enough for a Yes song called Light of the Ages. I think if John Anderson had written a song called Light of the Ages, I think we'd probably be talking about something that really sounds like a Yes song. And this is my issue with the album. It doesn't sound like Yes. Yes has gotten better on the two subsequent albums after this in baby steps. The one after this sounds more like Yes. The latest one sounds, Smear to the Sky sounds even more like Yes. But one of the things that I think is happening here is, and this album definitely is the worst at this, and it improves quite a bit later on, but there just isn't enough energy. These songs sound like, I mean, I know that Chris Squire and Alan White may not have been in the best of health when they recorded this record, but there just isn't enough energy. A couple of the songs have so little energy that they sound like they're worse than demos, like they're about to just run out of steam. John Davison said that. He said a little while later, a couple of years later, I think, he said, I feel like Heaven and Earth was a huge disappointment. I know I'm not the only one. It didn't develop properly. The songs never got the full treatment and were never polished. So what we basically released was a series of demos. And that's a huge disappointment for me. That's what this sounds like to me. And I think that maybe someday we'll find out what actually happened during these sessions, because Roy Thomas Baker gets credit for producing this album, but he left before the end of the sessions, and Billy Sherwood finished the mixes. Now, say what you want about Billy Sherwood. I think he's a great Yes member and a super nice guy and crazy talented, but I do not think that he's a very good mix engineer. I think that his own solo albums suffer from him not being a very good mix engineer. And I don't think he did a very good job with this at all, but I don't want to give him too much heat for it, because I think he had a really tough job trying to make some sense of this. But we don't know what happened. But here's an interesting thing. When this album came out, Roy Thomas Baker said on Twitter, he wrote one tweet and he said, I want to give my best wishes to the band Yes. Love those guys. I think that he told them they didn't have an album. And since this was Frontiers is like, whatever you guys turn in, we're putting out. Now, we were talking about that Grant and I were.
Well, we were talking about it last night.
With Toto, we were talking about how Toto 14 on Frontiers is better than it should ever have been. Right. There's no reason for something that late in a band's career to be so good. And we were talking about how Frontiers is great about that.
Yeah.
If you're a legacy band signed to Frontiers, you can put anything out. And we were saying that that Boston album from about 6 or 7 years ago was the one exception to that. I forgot to mention this. I think if Frontiers had come back to them and said, "Hey, maybe we can beef this up, or maybe we've got a couple of more songs," but I don't think John Davison is the right person to be in Yes. He's got the range, but he doesn't have the grit. He doesn't have the swagger that John Anderson has. Everybody thinks of John Anderson as a guy with a really high voice, with a really elf pixie kind of voice, but that's what everybody thinks. But the thing about it is that John Anderson can sing rock and roll. Yeah. I do not think that John Davison can. His voice is very gentle, and everything that he does that has his name on it, all the songs that he writes, which is almost all of these, they're very gentle in nature, and that's fine. But this is a big deal. This is a really huge band. Yeah. And I don't think he brings the right energy to Yes. So I almost feel bad that this is such a negative review, but I was really angry when this came out, because I don't think that it lives up to the Yes name at all. And before I give my rating, I want to these pictures in the booklet from the studio, the studio looks like it's like the headquarters from Office Depot. I don't know how that looks like a studio, but it does not have there's no wood paneling here. There's no, there's not the right atmosphere for rock and roll. But you sure
they didn't record that in Trevor Rabin's garage? Like,
I don't know. But the thing I love is this picture of Steve Howe. It's like he's going, I'm getting the hell out of here. He's got one hand on the door. But anyway,
Steve Howe's barely on the record.
Oh. But before I give my rating, I want to say one very positive thing. I think this cover is absolutely stunning. I think it might be my favorite Roger Dean cover. I think it's beautiful. I wish the album was better. I'm going to give it a 3. I, I really think it's weak.
All right.
I think Subway Walls is way too little, way too late.
And by the time you get into the record and you have to endure the whole thing, you get the Subway Walls and you're going, well, where has this been?
Yeah. Yeah. There are some instrumental passages on this album. And, we're talking about Yes here. We're talking about the kings of intricate, powerful instrumental
but there's
melodies and arrangements. And there are some arrangements on here that are so slow, and there's some rhythmic things that are so uninspiring and so devoid of energy that it just.
I really want to make a comment, Todd, but I'm going to wait. I'm going to try to hold back. But...
Okay. But I really wish that there was somebody lit a fire under him.
Maybe God, you would think that Roy Thomas Baker, for crying out loud.
I think Roy Thomas Baker walked away from this project. That's my hypothesis, that he walked away from this project. He said, "This is not an album." And they said, "This is what you get. This is what we have. This is what's coming out." They think they ran into a deadline and they made an agreement. I'm going to walk away from this project. You give me credit. I get paid for it. I will say something nice about you and then never speak of it again.
Could be. Wouldn't be the first time something like that's ever happened. So
yeah.
All right, Todd Evans. Holy mackerel, starting us out with a 3 out of 10. I'm going to throw it over to BM Bolt and get his thoughts on this record. Byron, welcome to the show. Nice to see you. What's your thoughts on, this Yes album?
I got to see Yes right around this time. They were doing, I think, Fragile, Yes album, and Close to the Edge, I think, in their entirety, and Davison was singing. It was good. I thought, he fit the part as far as, singing the Anderson stuff. Then I first heard this album when it came out, and I didn't really think a whole lot of it. And I maybe listened to it once or twice. I didn't have it for a long time. But about 3 years ago, I was looking on Facebook and some guy was selling like a dozen prog CDs for like $10. And I was like, wow, you never see this stuff,
Right.
And and this was one of them. There was a bunch of cool prog stuff in there, but it was like there was a couple of Marillions and a IQ, and you don't really see that, especially the IQ, but they weren't probably some of their better titles. I think this guy was just kind of purging some of his prog that he didn't like as much. And I snagged him up. So anyway, I got this in that pile, and I listened to it when I got it. And once again, I was like, I didn't really care for it. But then this came up, and I was like, all right, well, let me check it out some more. But so I've listened to it 3 or 4 times in the last couple of weeks, and it's better than I had thought it was going to be based on my prior listens. But I still think it's probably one of their worst albums. So I really had low opinion of it prior to this. But as far as it goes, I want to agree with Todd. This is their best cover, probably. Roger Dean's best
It's
cover.
beautiful.
It is incredible. So, but I guess what I kind of wanted to know was what happened to the progressive Yes on this album? There's no musical complexity hardly at all to it.
And when they do try that, it's like super simple, almost, and that's okay. I don't mind that. I like lots of simple music. I mean, but when they do try to do like an instrumental passage, it's not real good.
I felt as if they saved the prog for the last song, but I'll get to that. It seems like almost everything on here is this kind of a mid-tempo, except for maybe a couple tracks. One's even slower than that, and then there might be 1 or 2 that are a little faster than mid-tempo, but they're all kind of in that same area. I want to call this album smooth prog, kind of like smooth jazz.
It's almost like yacht rock prog.
Yeah, it's I like jazz. Smooth jazz, it's something I don't really want to listen to unless it's in the background and I'm doing something else.
Well, you know what? I don't want to interrupt, Byron, but you mentioned the smooth jazz. I totally agree with you, because when I listen to Subway Walls, what I hear on that is more of a jam song, and it's more jazz oriented than anything else. You might say there's prog on it, but very little. It's just them going back and forth. You got Jeff Downs playing a keyboard part, and then Steve Howe takes a solo. It's like I don't know. It's like a jam.
There are pop albums in the Yes, in the Yes family,
but not quite like this.
There's like John Anderson's City of Angels and stuff like that. I'd rather have that. I'd rather have a pop album that sounds confident. So my issue with it is that not that it's not prog. My issue with it is that it sounds tentative and not confident. I don't know how. I know it's not my turn anymore, but
no, it's all right. We're just having a discussion. It's all.
I don't know how It Was All We Knew got on an album. I really don't know how that is not either discarded or a B-side. I really don't know.
If you know what, if we're doing an album like this, bring in Trevor Rabin, who knows what to do with this type of material.
That would have been a big help.
Because look, 90125, that's a pop record pretty much. There's very little. Well, actually, I take that back. There's more prog on that record than this record.
There's some heavy rock on that record.
But there's a lot more prog on there,
I'm not saying that that's what I want this to be, but there could have been a taste of rock.
Yeah, there's no rock.
And we were talking about smooth jazz. Smooth jazz usually has a pretty definitive groove to it.
There's no groove.
That doesn't happen here.
Oh God!
I also wrote down.
All right, sorry, Byron. We're on a tangent, but in the Warehouse, it's just really just about
I'm gonna mute myself.
Okay. I also wrote down easy listening prog.
That's pretty accurate.
But I
don't think there's much prog on it though. Even that. It's a pop record.
So we're gonna call it prog. So whatever. But like 90125 and Big Generator, they were more proggy than this.
Yes.
Not a ton on Big Generator, but it also rocked occasionally. This never really rocks at all, hardly. But anyway, I digress. Like Todd had said, Davison said it was a big disappointment. I know Howe was really critical of Roy Thomas Baker, the job he did on this album. I don't know if that's accurate or not.
I doubt it.
I listened to this right before the show again, and I probably couldn't tell you how any song goes off the top of my head. But let me give you a few notes about a few of the songs. I didn't think the first song was too bad. Yeah, it might have been a little too long. Had a nice instrumental section toward the middle. It was pleasant, that's how I would describe it. The rest... Basically, the first three songs, I would say they're all about the same to me. I hate that synth part in Step Beyond.
Well, it drives me crazy.
That's what I'm talking about when I say it doesn't sound like Jeff. It doesn't sound like Jeff.
I don't think it's a bad song, because it kind of wanted to start rocking at one point, and then they go back to that synth part again. And it's like, you guys
not good.
Kept rocking.
It was so close. Yeah.
Yeah.
Eliminate that synth part and you might have something, but it's too annoying. It's very annoying.
Yeah.
Whose idea was that?
That'll be how
it seems out of character for Downs. Doesn't seem like something he'd play.
It doesn't seem like a Jeff Downs keyboard part. I'm going to say, God knows it wasn't Chris Squire. Must be John Davidson. This is John Davidson's record, as far as I'm concerned. It's not really a Yes record. It's a John Davidson record.
It almost looks like he's the only guy that really showed up and tried. I mean,
it's said
his name is on every song but one.
Well, it's his record.
That seems like an awful lot to put on his shoulders. Sorry, Byron, go ahead.
Yeah, I read that since he was new to the band, he wanted to go all out, so he'd travel to every guy's house and sit down with them to write songs. So I think that's what he did, is he kind of visited everybody. Hell, White's even got a co-write on here. So
White's barely even here on this record.
I know. But that fourth track, they slow it down, and I was just, man, I need something to pick up the pace here. I was like, I'm already halfway sleeping after the first 3 songs, so they slowed down on that song. But anyway, I'll just skip some of the rest of the tracks. But I didn't think It Was All We Knew was that bad. I thought up to that point it was the best thing on here. I kind of like that little guitar melody he plays, but yeah. But Subway Walls is definitely the best song on here. What I wrote down, at last, some prog.
At last, well, I don't even think that's even prog. It's
it's not bad, but
well, I
like the keyboard.
Keep going, Byron. I'm not going to say anything. I'm killing me, but I'll keep going.
I enjoyed the keyboard intro on there. It was pretty good. Squire finally starts doing something remotely interesting.
Starts sounding like Squire. Yeah.
Yeah, because up till this, his playing hadn't really done anything for me. He had some nice backing vocals here and there, but it's also got some odd time signatures on that song. I thought there was some decent guitar work. It's 9 minutes, but it's not a classic Yes track, in my opinion.
But that 9 minutes does go by faster than it does the 8 minutes on Believe Again. I will give it that.
But anyway, I thought that song was pretty decent.
I'll tell you, it's the most Yes-like track in 2014 that I've heard.
But, saying that the stuff that's written on Subway Walls might be the modern day version of what the philosopher said in a different age, that's something that John Anderson would have never done. That's not strong enough for a Yes song. I hate to keep bringing J.A.'s name up again, but everybody hates a dictator and a little Napoleon, as they call him, but yeah, maybe this needs it.
I don't know, but Rand keeps throwing shit up on the screen.
They should bring him back, but
who's that, Tony K? I can't tell who that looks like.
No, that's
Tony
the
K.
John Anderson and the Band Geeks. That's the album cover. And I hope to God it's just a mock-up and that's not what the cover looks like, because that cover that's like late period Styx bad. I'm glad you agree with me, Rand.
God, late period Styx bad.
That's like what is that Styx album? That's the last one with
Cyclorama.
No, the last one with Dynasty Young. I can see it, but I can't.
Brave New World.
Yeah, Brave New World. And Dennis Young was like, please don't use that cover. Don't use that cover. I'm warning you, don't use that cover. And they did.
That Brave New World is hitting.
Yeah.
No Styx logo. That's a whole other show, but we've talked about
Cyclorama. I just watched that show, and Cyclorama, somebody said that reminds me of an Alan Parsons cover.
Yeah, that was me.
Try anything once. It looks just like
it does almost exactly. I think that's what was in my brain when I said
that. Was 1993.
Yeah.
It was.
All right, cool.
Well,
so
anyway,
Byron, what's your rating out of 10?
I'm
unless
go,
you have
I'm done. Okay. Actually, I'm gonna go 4.5.
Okay. All right, so we got a 3 and a 4.5.
4 of that's for the cover, right?
Okay.
Well, I raised mine from a 2 to a 3 because of the cover.
Let me say my piece.
There you go.
Let's talk about the cover. I don't mind the background artwork, but I don't like the Yes logo with the. I don't like that. I don't dig it. I don't like it. I don't like that. I don't like it. But who cares? That has nothing to do with the music. Where do I begin? Now, Todd said that he thought that the couple of albums after this sounded more Yes than this.
Yes, I do.
I disagree. And I think this is how I look at it. When you've got Chris Squire, you have to have Chris Squire to be here, present, singing, playing bass. He's so distinctive. As far as I'm concerned, Chris Squire is Yes. Everything else after, it might be a good record, but it's Yes adjacent, since we seem to be using that a lot. But this does sound like Yes, but very weak Yes. Some people might like this. It's very adult contemporary Yes. It's a pop record. It's more pop than the Trevor Rabin albums by any stretch of the imagination. you get the Subway Walls and you think you've got a hint of prog, but really you're just getting Yes jamming. I don't think there's any prog. I feel great that Chris Squire really is up in the mix finally, because throughout the rest of the record, even though he's there, he's very low in the mix. And part of the Yes sound is having a strong Chris Squire bass part.
Very curious that Billy Sherwood would put him low in the mix. Very interesting.
A lot of ego.
Sound like something he'd do.
Come on, Billy's going. You know what, Chris? God, you got cancer. Maybe that's not right. Maybe that's too soon. But I'm just saying, he wants in there.
I don't think that Chris Squire was healthy when he made this record.
Maybe not. I don't know.
That would explain a lot. It could be that his performances weren't good enough, and that's why they weren't up in the mix. Maybe Billy Sherwood played some of that.
I think it's Chris Squire because Billy Sherwood has a different tone than Chris Squire. This sounds like Chris Squire to me. You cannot, because all the other stuff with Billy playing bass, it's no Chris Squire, for God's sakes. Chris is very distinct. Billy Sherwood doesn't play a damn Rickenbacker. Chris is playing the Rickenbacker on here for the most part, based on what I hear.
I'm going to look at the pictures.
Look at the pictures. Maybe he's bringing out the Electra. I don't know.
From the First Bank and Trust Studios. Let me see.
But what I'm
trying, he's playing that 90125.
The green thing, that green bass. Well, whatever. Chris Squire sounds like Chris Squire. Just because there's a picture in there doesn't mean anything. Okay, but he doesn't really show up until track 8.
Yeah, I agree.
But maybe he's sick. I don't know. I didn't read the liners saying, hey, Chris Squire's sick. I don't know. All I know is this is a product and it doesn't reflect well.
He's not necessarily ill, or maybe doesn't know he's ill, but maybe he's not feeling 100%.
What are you pointing to, Rand?
That's the picture I was showing with them.
I know, but you're pointing to something else. You're muted.
Rand might know what the name of that guitar is. Do you know what that guitar is?
Yeah, it's called a Meridian.
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
I don't like it.
It's a customized guitar that Meridian made him, and nobody else has one. But if you look at it closely, with his arm out of the way, there's a C and there's an S.
Oh, I think it's a cool bass.
Yeah, it's a nice one. And he played it exclusively, basically, for Owner of a Lonely Heart. But I did see him use it once with Lightning Strikes. But anyway, what I was pointing out was, in this picture, there's other bass guitars back here in a rack.
Well, of course, he's got a crap load.
Now I saw, I can't do my thing yet. I'm sorry. You're not done.
Oh, God knows I'm not done. But what I'm trying to say is Chris Squire, you can hear him throughout the record. You can hear his backgrounds. I wish I could hear more of Chris Squire on the backgrounds, because the key to Yes and their sound is Chris Squire. Quote me, because they've never sounded the same once he passed away. We lost his vocals. On the whole catalog, Chris Squire's vocals and the way he blended with John Anderson, that was part of it. Mm-hmm. And without Chris, we have a different band. You can quote me, but it's not the same.
I agree with you. But do you really think that you're getting a true, honest to gosh, Chris Squire performance on this record? Because I don't think you are.
I don't know if it's Chris Squire. I don't know if it's Roy Thomas Baker. I don't know if it's
Billy Sherwood.
But the final product does not represent Chris Squire to his 100% potential. And John Davidson sounds just like John Anderson for the most part, and I don't hear that blend that I want to hear like I should. I want to hear some Chris Squire. He is Yes, and his stamp is important, and I don't hear it so much. But I do have to admit, even though he's down in the mix and he's not really there, it does sound like a Yes record to me, even though a very uninspired Yes record. So it could be worse. I've heard albums after this that don't sound like Yes at all. I mean,
let me add one thing.
Steve Howe album, Go ahead.
Okay, I wanted to make sure I forgot to look. Okay, so you know, I get it that you wanted to sound like Chris Squire in Yes, but the guy passes away, and as he's passing away, he's got Billy right in front of him, and he's saying, "I'm begging you, please carry on for
Well,
me."
of course, do you think Chris Squire doesn't want Billy or someone to carry on?
It's just like any band that loses members and wants to keep going. It's the music that keeps the band going. Okay, they've got a great discography that'll keep this band going for maybe 100 to 200 years. How did classical music like Bach still get out? You know, there's still orchestras out there playing it because it's good, and that's what matters. So I see it as like, yeah.
So it's kind of like the Kiss Avatar thing. You're behind that too.
I don't know anything about Kiss, but
I'm not saying, but other people on the panel know what I'm talking about.
But what I'm talking about is if you want to lay the blame on why you can't hear Chris Squire very well, it says right on there, mixed by Billy Sherwood. I love Billy Sherwood. I mean, he's a friend of mine on Facebook. I've got a page for him and everything I created. But I think he made some mistakes on this album. I think Roy Thomas Baker gave him a mess, and Billy Sherwood probably did the best he could with it. And there's a good chance that those tracks with Chris were already laid down, and he couldn't do much with them other than EQ them or pan them. Because I know
you can bring him up in the mix.
I think they ran out of time.
You can't if his vocals is part of the bass guitar.
Why, with all the studio technology, 48 tracks, why
well, that's true. I mean, yeah, they got more than I got. I
be on the vocal track. That we're talking 1971. We're in 2014, for God's sake, or whatever this was. What was it?
But we weren't in that studio. We don't know what happened, you know.
Well, so, I guarantee you that Chris Squire's vocals is not on the bass track.
I'm going back to Roy Thomas Baker said, "You got to start over. We have to record these tracks over." And they said no. Steve Howell probably said, "No, we don't have time. We're not doing them over." And he walked.
This is new to me. I didn't know any of that.
Well, we know this is speculation.
This is speculation, man. This is just my theory.
But I've heard Steve Howe put this album down, so that'll tell you everything you need.
All right. So what did Steve Howe say about this record?
He said, "Heaven and Earth is a disaster. We should have never released it." Well, you know,
I don't think it's a disaster.
I might be embellishing a little bit to that, but
I have a quote from him. If you want to hear it.
Quote. Okay, I like it.
Go ahead, Todd.
This is from Wikipedia, full disclosure. Howe looked back on Heaven and Earth in 2016 and said it was a, quote, hellishly trickish album to make, unquote. And then he went on to say that Roy Thomas Baker was going through a lot of personal things at the time, which slowed the recording of the album, and the band ran out of time. Well, now, if you look at Roy Thomas Baker's discography, he's only, since 1999, he has only produced 7 albums. Mm-hmm. And the thing that he produced prior to Heaven and Earth was 2 years prior. And then he's got 2 years prior to that. And then he did the Smashing Pumpkins American Gothic in 2008. This is a guy that's not at the top of his game.
Well, I only knew him from 3 bands: Queen, Starcastle,
right,
Cars,
and the Cars.
That was a long time ago.
And he's gone after Candy-O, right?
No, he's gone after.
He's not gone until Heartbeat City.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right. Because Mutt Lange did that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. You know, some people lose their ears. I mean, I think that's why Yes had to get rid of Eddie Offord, because he just didn't have what he had when they were doing the Yes album and Fragile and Close to the Edge.
Well, I don't know. Hang on. Let me interject real quick. Anybody in the comments, please let us know what you think about this. This is kind of a heated discussion, though I love all these gentlemen. It's not really heated, but we're talking music. We do want to hear from you in the chat. What's your thoughts on this record? Because we are ranking it. How do you feel this ranks in the Yes catalog? Is this worthy of someone buying? Would you turn somebody on to this? Is it a piece of crap? We want to hear. So anyway.
I wanted to say something real quick in defense of what comes after this. I saw Yes a bunch of times, probably 4 or 5 times during this whole period, but slightly before this record. I think the first time was in 2011, it's close to when this album came out, and after. And when Billy Sherwood and Jay Shellen, when Jay Shellen started playing the drums along with Alan White, the performances got better. I don't think these guys could handle it, and I'm not ready to blame them for what I don't like about this album. I think that they just couldn't do it anymore. And I really don't want to make that sound like I'm putting the blame on them, or I'm just saying that I think it was just too hard for him. But Yes's live performances with Billy Sherwood and Jay Shellen have gotten better.
Yeah.
Yeah, the live performances are good.
because those two guys are like Lennon and McCartney. They're tied to the hip. Have you ever heard the World Trade album?
Yeah.
Euphoria. It's really good.
Yeah.
And Jay Shellen and Billy Sherwood have known each other for decades. So he was perfect replacement.
Between 2011 and 2014, whenever I saw Yes, I would say to my wife, I would be like, something is wrong with Alan White. Alan White is not right.
I can attest to that.
That's not the same.
He kept going. You have to hand it to him, but to the detriment of the band, I think.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Todd. Did you get to see the Masterworks tour in 2000 where they did all?
I did.
I saw it. I saw it at Concord, California, at the Concord Pavilion. And Alan White had trouble timing up with Chris for Heart of the Sunrise. And he and a couple of other things too. It wasn't just that. Close to the Edge was shaky. And I think Alan White's had timing problems, and that was 2000.
Yeah, I was going to say 2000
so
or
here we are
99.
14 years later,
yeah.
and Chris is obviously just not healthy. We know that now.
No.
I mean, when you get what he had, because my dad, my real father, died of the same thing. Well, pretty much the same thing, leukemia. And the crazy thing about it is, I swear to God, this is true. They both died on June 27th.
Wow.
My father died June 27th, 1956, and Chris Squire died June 27th, 2015, of the same leukemia. Insane. But I just think that if you're going to get sick like that, to do an album like a year before, we don't even know what year they were recording this. Okay. Probably not 2014. It was probably 2013.
It was January 6th through March of 2014.
There you go. Oh,
but the thing is,
yeah.
But I'm not judging. Okay. I'm not judging the record on whether Chris was sick or not. I'm judging it on the product. Now, if Chris couldn't handle it, let's put somebody else in there that could handle it.
Well,
when I listen to it, I don't have a problem with his bass parts. They're not quite what they were, but they're so low in the mix.
Yeah, you can't hear
them. Problem.
Yeah.
And
I agree with that.
Like Todd said, a bass player like Billy Sherwood would have made that better.
I think Billy Sherwood's hands were tied. I don't think he could.
It's possible.
I think Todd's right.
Yeah, I don't think he could make it any better.
A company out of Italy?
Yes.
I don't think Frontiers could give a shit. They want you to deliver the product. They'll put it out. But there's something behind this. Who mixed? You said Billy Sherwood mixed it?
Yes.
Well, there's Billy Sherwood. I don't care who hands are tied.
He really is
the project.
He really is the responsible party. And like I said, I love Billy, but this is just one of those things that has happened. And people can either, I am of the opinion that there's no bad Yes music. So this is a Yes album, but I'll talk more when it's my turn.
Well, I think that's probably coming up pretty soon.
It is coming up. I think I've said what I had to say.
Well, are you going to rate it now?
Yeah, I didn't think about rating it, but I'm going to rate it. Let's say this. Let's say you look at the entire Yes catalog. And the way I rate things is this something that I pull out more than anything? Now, I've been on record as saying that Yes Drama, I love that record. That is really the record I pull out more than anything. You might be, BM Bolt is throwing his finger up.
It's on the wall.
Okay, there you go. I love Drama.
Oh, me too.
I love everything that came before as well. Let's say this, the Yes album on to Drama. I love Drama. This is no drama. I think Drama, as time has progressed, I think a lot of people appreciate it a lot more. I think this would have been a better record because I think Trevor Horn knows what with Yes. If he was in the producer chair, I think we would have had a better product. If he would have mixed it, it would have been better, but I can't change that. Where was I going? Okay. I was trying to talk about if I'm picking a record, God, I'm on a tangent. I'm not going to choose this record because for one, there's nothing memorable on it. And for Chris Squire's Swan Song, to be quite honest, it pains me to listen to it. I want to hear some Chris Squire. I want to hear some Chris Squire vocals. Strong. I want to hear a strong record. This is not strong. I would probably give this and I'm looking at all the Yes. Let's look at all the great Yes albums. Look at Drama. Look at Relayer.
Time in the Word.
I think that this, well, I'm not a big fan of Time in the Word, but I would rather listen to Time in a Word than this. I would probably give this record just hits right in the middle. It's not terrible, but it's not great Yes either. I would give it a 5. I don't think I'd give it a.
That's respectable.
Yeah.
That's respectable.
It's just middle of the road. There's nothing inspirational here. It's them going through the motions. This is a John Davis record. I want more Chris Squire. And let's be honest. Steve Howe on this record is basically phoning it in. There are no great Steve Howe.
There are moments where Steve Howe saves the song.
I enjoy
playing, and there's a couple of songs where he doesn't quite.
I would be happy. I would feel comfortable to give
always
this
good to hear
5 out of 10, but not there. To be quite honest, everybody out there listening, there really isn't any bad Yes. There's just different degrees. This is not a good Yes.
Got to go on the bottom. If you stack 23 like on the floor, something's going to be on the bottom.
Right.
I'm not saying this is on the bottom. There's a record that we could talk about that really is on the bottom.
I don't know what would be on the bottom. Oh yeah, I know.
Not this one.
Yes, remixes. Oh my God, that's the worst thing I've ever.
That's not even on the bottom.
Count. That doesn't count.
That's awful.
I'll let everyone out there chime in and decide what the bottom is. It's not this record. At least this does sound like Yes to me, but just very lightweight, soft rock, pop Yes.
Yeah.
To not even the degree of the Trevor Rabin albums, which when you compare the Trevor Rabin albums to this, those are brilliant. So it is. I'll give it a 5 because there's really not any bad Yes.
I want to know what's on the bottom.
See, I was thinking about, me too.
I know what's on the bottom. Here, I can't. Of course, you're putting me on the spot. I'll tell you what it is.
Open Your Eyes, 1997.
Exactly.
Oh, no. Oh,
I like
Open Your Eyes is way better than that.
No, horrible record.
I mean, I really do.
They're all bottom 3.
Yeah, but it's way better than this.
I think Open Your Eyes is the ladder is a masterpiece.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, we're not talking the latter.
No, I know, but
Open Your Eyes, though. I think they should have.
We're talking about the 21st.
Open Your Eyes is badly flawed, but it has 2 or 3 tracks on it that are actually really good.
Well, my favorite song on there is Universal Garden.
Universal Garden and Fortune Seller, and the title track.
So you really think the Yes well, it doesn't get a very good review. I'll give you that.
Fortune Seller.
Think about this era in Yes. They're just putting out shit to put shit out. It's not like their heart's in it. They're just trying to make a paycheck. Yeah. Hey, let's just throw something out and see if it sticks.
Want me to start now?
Yeah, I think we should have have Rand start.
Oh, I can hardly wait, Rand. So when
I heard this was coming out, I was already a John Davison fan from Glass Hammer. I already listened to If. I listened to Corcordium, and the third one called Perilous. Let me tell you, John Davison sounds way different in Glass Hammer than he does in Yes. He's got much more punchy voice. This cat is good. He's good. And the reason he got in the band, well, let me tell you how he got in the band.
Yeah, but this is his record, though.
Taylor Hawkins from the Foo Fighters, the drummer that passed away recently, he told Chris Squire, there's this guy in a group called Close to the Edge that you guys need, because they just lost Benoit David because he got sick with his lungs and stuff, the same way that John Anderson did. It was really wacky how it all happened. But anyway, they listen to the Glass Hammer stuff and they go, oh yeah, that's pretty good. So he gets in the band and they go, you know what? Our fans want new music. Let's create new music. And they go, like Todd was saying, John Davison went around all over the world because Yes was just spread out everywhere. You know, they were in England, they were in LA, they were, you know, all over the place. So John Davison goes around to everybody and says, I've got these ideas, let's collaborate or whatever. And Light of the Ages is credited only to John Davison. And that's the only song on the album that has done that. Everything else is a collaboration. So when I saw them live, this album had already been released. We saw them in Sacramento. They did Believe Again and The Game. And it was the only two, which is the first two songs on this album, the only two songs they did on the tour. They didn't do any of these other tunes. And I was hoping for Subway Waltz because, you know, that's my favorite song on the record. But that never happened because that never happens. I never get my way with this band. But anyways,
well,
it's all about Rand, ladies and gentlemen.
It's all about me. Yeah, I paid the money and everything. No, but anyways, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have opened this album with Believe Again. I was telling a friend today when I was talking to him, then and I said, Believe Again sounds like, you know how you walk into a swimming pool down a stairway and you just sort of float into the water and you try not to make any waves? Mm-hmm. That's how this album starts.
It's good. It's
just like you're floating on your back in the lake and going, oh, this is really relaxing. When is something going to happen? It's like he said, eight minutes.
Hey, it's a decent record to put it on in the background.
That part that goes,
soft prog. Not even prog, though, Byron.
It's prog light
on here.
Let's just call it prog light. Okay. So, yeah, that's not a gripper, that's for sure. No. But I saw it happen. That bass that he uses on that's the same bass he used in Changes on 90125. It's that Ranny 8-string bass. And it's kind of weird tone because when you hit the low string, there's an octave higher string that you hit at the same time. And usually, and Greg Lake found this out the hard way.
I was just about to say, like Greg Lake.
When you play that, like he's done the limbic, he does the same thing. It's that live concert in Montreal. And every time he hits that note, all you hear is the high string. It's like the bass string doesn't have any audibility at all, you know? So it's just so weird. So that's the same thing.
Yeah, but you should be able to hear it, though.
But that sounds the same. That's why when they go, you know, the chorus of Believe Again, when they go down, 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 it almost sounds like Steve Howe's playing along with him. But no, that's the 8-string bass and Steve Howe's playing something else. But yeah, that tune came across live way better than on this album. Then they did The Game, and the same thing happened. You can't hear Chris's bass on The Game. It's almost, you know, he's got a fuzz box on that thing, and when he hits the string, it's clear, but then you can hear the string just kind of resonate in the fuzz box. It's like he's doing it in two different channels. And I think what happened was the fuzz is so low, you can't hear it. So when he hits the bass note, it disappears. You don't really hear the fuzz too much, and you think that, where's Chris? I can't hear Chris, but that song is fast. That's like, da, 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 da. You know, that's the fastest song on the album, by the way. But it doesn't have any meat to it. It doesn't sound like it's beefy at all.
No meat, yeah.
I know what you're saying. I think it's the problem of mixing the bass with, that's a Rickenbacker, by the way. When we saw him live, but it's just that fuzz box thing that he's doing with the clear tone. I could see doing that.
But Rush have done that. There are other bands that have done it, and you can still do it.
I know, but again, who mixed this album? Sorry, Billy.
But because Chris is running stereo.
Yeah, probably.
You know, you've ever seen the premiere episode, how he runs his bass?
Well, there's Rico sound on that thing. I got one, and I don't even know how to use it. But that's neither here nor there. But anyways, so I'm trying to make some apologies for this record. I think song sequence has a lot to do with these albums. Another thing
but not this one.
Well, I mean, you know, and another thing within the world of our own, when Alan White goes, you know what I hear in my head? It's Breakdown by Tom Petty.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Am I right?
You're right.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And what was that other one? Was it Step Beyond, I think? I've tried to play that lick on my mini Moog. That's hard. That's hard to do. They've never done that song live. It would probably just fall apart as soon as they tried to play it. But I agree with you. That is annoying. It's an annoying part. And it also goes between the speakers. Like
yeah.
Listen, if we're going to get annoying, we're really going for it. you know, but I'm trying to be realistic. You know, I don't hate this album. I don't love it. It's not my favorite album, but I think there's some pretty good tunes on it. I really like I like In a World of Our Own. I gotta admit, I do. It's pretty cool. But it's just like, you know, we don't want to give Alan White a heart attack kind of thing on that song. Is, you know, it's just he and Chris, they used to be like a duet team from 1973's Tales from Topographic Oceans all the way to here. But for some reason here, it's not that they're not in time together. It's out of balance somehow. I think it's the volume. I think Alan White's drums are burying Chris's bass.
Because of Billy Sherwood's mix. But I'm just looking at I'm thinking, is really Alan White playing drums at this point?
Yeah, let me talk to you about.
As the only drummer.
I'm getting
doesn't sound like him though, does it?
No.
I'm getting to Subway Walls, but what do you think of? Let's ignore Light of the Ages, because that feel is the same kind of feel as Lights by Journey. It's got that 6/8 when the lights come down. You know, that's the same thing as Light of the Ages. So that kind of beat has never been my favorite beat, but I do like that Steve Howe song called "It Was All We Knew." I think that's really clever, really catchy. That's a pop tune, and it kind of reminds me of the Beatles, and it kind of reminds me of the Moody Blues. In fact, I've been doing a lot of Let It Be lately because it just got released on Disney Plus, and I swear to God, and it was all we knew. You can sing Two of Us. It's perfect. Two of us riding nowhere. That one. And then when you get to Subway Walls, Jeff Downs and some kind of an orchestra just, you know, where did this come from? This is totally different than the rest of the record. This sounds, I think Subway Walls sounds more like an Asia tune than a Yes tune. Because let's face it, the heart and soul and composition of Asia is Jeff Downs. Always has been. So when they get to that point where they stop singing and they go into that jam you guys talk about, that's in 15/8. So, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then it repeats over and over and over. I think that's pretty cool. I think Steve Howe plays some killer stuff on that jazzy type Wes Montgomery chords, you know, because he's a big fan of that guy. And Jeff Downs play some killer organ on that. It really sounds nice.
The organ sounds really good on it.
Like you said, it's short-lived, and then they go back into the ending of the song, and then it goes to this weird outro has nothing to do with the song. It's kind of like what they did with Hour of Need. If you heard the Japanese release of that, the extended versions where you hear the beginning, and have you heard that, Todd?
Yeah, I have.
Steve Howe wrote the beginning and the ending, and then they put the Hour of Need in the middle.
Yeah.
Has no connection to it whatsoever. Yeah. It's kind of the same thing, but Jeff Downs pretty much ends the album, you know. And like I said, I don't think it's not my favorite Yes album, but I don't think it's that bad. And I try to look at it with a perspective, because I know it's kind of like probably psychosis or something, but you can kind of mentally prepare yourself to pretend that what if this was their only album? Would I hate it as much as knowing everything that came before it and the couple that are after it? I try to listen to albums like that now, especially the ones where most people hate. In fact, I was talking to Grant maybe about doing a series like this where we could find like 5 albums that most people hate, pretend they don't have a discography, and then really get into the music and say, is it really that bad? Or are we just being closed-minded, or do we expect too much? And we're disappointed.
I am usually the glass half full guy. In just about any other situation but this one.
Yeah, but you said it. I heard you say it. You said what came before, and that does affect your judgment.
Yes, it does.
Well, with such a catalog such as Yes.
Yes is a very important band.
Well, listen, guys, I started with the Yes album, and I was in the Air Force, and I heard this band, and I went, "Holy shit, what the hell is this?" You know, I had no clue, and it was like instant love. I mean, and so I stuck with them all this time. But, anyways, I don't hate the first two albums. I think Time and a Word, I'll tell you right now, it's the fastest album we've ever done. Bill Bruford's playing his ass off on that record, on Then, and what's that fast one that they do? Every Days by Stephen Stills, Buffalo Springfield. My God, the middle part of that's insane. But getting back to those first two albums with Peter Banks, I don't think they suck. I think they're good. I think the first album suffered.
I don't think that they suck. I don't think they're all. I'd rather listen.
Well,
to
a lot of people do. I mean, I just watched the Prog Report rank last night on YouTube. The Prog Report guys ranked all the Yes albums, and Heaven and Earth was on the bottom until the very last moment. I think they put Open Your Eyes below Heaven and Earth, but Yes Debut and Time and a Word were right next to them on the bottom tier. So they don't like those albums at all. So
I think Peter Banks really shines on the Flash records. I think that's where he really comes. Yeah, I think those Flash albums are absolutely stunning. At least the first couple.
That was his band. He created that band.
Great. I'm glad he left Yes, because those records are good.
Yeah, and he left after Time and a Word because Tony Colton had made the orchestra too loud, and he thought he was being buried by the violins and stuff, and thought it just sounded ridiculous. And they had this big argument. And John Anderson and Chris Squire, they liked the orchestra, and so Peter was gone, and then they ended up getting Steve. But they didn't do that again until
for Steve.
They didn't do that again until Magnification in 2001. I remember when Yes put out a poll on Yes World and said, "Do you guys want us to do an orchestra album?" And everybody went, "Yeah, do it." It was trippy. There's no major keyboard player on that album, although they did show a picture, well, live, but they did show a picture of Chris Squire and Alan White sitting next to each other on an organ with their backs to the camera. That doesn't mean nothing. I mean, they could have done that, But the point is, there is a little keyboard on that album, but it's not much to write mama home about it. But anyways, with Heaven and Earth, I guess I got to.
Well, what would you rate this?
By the way,
out of 10.
This is a coaster that came in the Japanese SHM CD.
Oh, okay.
So I've never opened it, so it's
preserved.
And they give you a bumper sticker too.
Right. That's nice.
You peel it off and put it on your license plate over your year. But anyways, yeah, it cost me a lot of money. I think I paid $65 for that. Ooh. But anyway, well, Japanese are.
Byron shakes his head because Byron only spends like $1 or 50 cents on things.
Yeah. Well, also, I thought I was going to get a really awesome bonus cut, and the bonus cut, they finally told you when you bought it.
It's the single mix.
It's to Ascend without drums and bass guitar. It's just the mandolin. But anyways, yippee!
That's no good.
I'm giving this a 7.
A 7. Okay.
I'd say $1 was too much to pay for this record, maybe.
Oh, Byron!
I was going to really.
Well, you might want to sell it because you could sell it for more than that because it's hard to get that record.
Well, Frontiers, so it's out of print.
By the way, these are expensive. I looked it up on Amazon. Yeah. The regular copy that Byron just showed, $85.99.
Anything on Frontiers, if it's out of print.
Used. That's not even brand new.
If it's on Frontiers, buy it now.
You can't find these brand new. They're nowhere.
No, it's been out of print.
Yeah. Yeah, it was 10 years old. I mean,
All right.
But like I said, I probably listened to it. Well, I listened to it today. I listened to it yesterday. And then before that, I listened to it 3 times. So I've listened to it. In 10 years, I've listened to the album 5 times.
That's not a whole lot for you, Rand, considering the Yes runs through your bloodstream.
Yeah, but I got a lot to listen to. I mean, take a look.
Hey, I'm just saying. I'm just throwing it out there. How often have you listened to Close to the Edge over that amount of period?
God, I can't tell you.
There you go.
Close All right. My favorite album and my favorite song.
Well, and I totally get
Of all
that.
time, by anybody.
Perfect record.
Perfect record.
All right, so we've got a 3, a 4.5. God, we start out so low, but we keep moving up. We got a 3, a 4.5, a 5, and a 7. Well, let's see what we have.
Well, we did the Quest. We did the Quest. I gave it a 10.
Yeah, I don't know if
and I did that.
I don't know what I gave it.
Just for
Probably
one reason.
a 7 or something.
I know it's so hated by so many people, and I don't have a problem with the Quest. I think it's a really nice album.
All right, so our average is 4. I guess it'd be a 4.9.
Mine's just rounded off to 5.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I can do that because it was 4.875.
Okay, I'll give it a 7.1.
I'm going to give it a 4.9. And I think that maybe that's very similar to what I was going to rate it. So I agree with that 100%.
I'm going to change my rating to 7.1 to make it a 5.
Well, before we sign off, would you all right, is this record, unless you're a completist, this record is not a necessary Yes album to own?
No, but
no.
You know what? If somebody doesn't like prog and just wanted to hear a pop album, I would turn them onto this. I played it for a friend the other day, and we listened to the whole thing, and she said, "Oh, I like this. It's pretty good."
That's okay if you put on the background.
I don't think it's a good pop album.
Oh, I'd recommend it to someone who has trouble sleeping.
Well, there's no hooks on the record. There's nothing memorable. It'll play, and you go, "Well, that's pleasant enough." But there's nothing to retain anything in your.
I think It Was All We Knew has hooks. I like that tune. It's really catchy.
All right, one song out of the whole record.
Yeah,
that has something to retain.
What you're right about Subway Walls. It's like, hey, we got to do a prog tune, or we're going to lose half our audience.
But it's not that proggy. It's more of a jam. It's more jazz.
Let me tell you this. I remember
else.
Genesis bragging about how they had this 10-minute song in 1986, and the proggers were just going to love it. The Gabriel crowd were going to love it, and it came out Tonight, 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 and I find that one of the most boring songs ever. It doesn't do anything. It's listenable. It's got a good hook, but
but these people are going to say these people are going to say whatever they want to try to sell records. Yeah. They at the time, I'm sure, Yes thought that this was the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Let me ask you a question. What about the song "I Can't Dance" from We Can't Dance?
This is a different. I don't have time to counter that. That's a different
band.
That's a different band and a different dynamic.
Just because it's got a hook doesn't make it great.
Yeah, but okay,
it's not great. But I don't think it's related to.
It's not related to Yes, but at least Genesis can write pop songs, memorable pop songs, and they were such good songwriters. I don't think Yes could really do that.
Well,
there's somebody in the Yes family that can do that.
Only
Rabin.
Yeah, only Owner of a Lonely Heart went #1.
Yeah, but that's more prog than this record by any stretch of the means. Anyway, so there you go. We give it a 4.9. I wouldn't recommend it. If you're a completist, yeah, go ahead. If you do like this album, everybody in the chat, because this has been quite a discussion.
Yeah.
One of the better discussions, I must say. This is the kind of show I like. Let us know what you feel about this record down below. Please like, subscribe. You know the whole routine here in the Warehaus. Recommend it to your friends, for crying out loud, and buy a damn shirt if you're here.
I'm gonna put it away for another 4 or 5 years, I think.
What, this record?
Yeah.
Well, you've probably heard it a lot.
I've heard it enough in the last 2 days to last me at least a year or two.
Well, there you go. I'm going to leave it at that. All right, Byron, Rand, and Todd, thanks for coming on. What a great discussion. Your mileage may vary with this record, and like I said, let us know. So,
thanks for having me.
Oh, it's always fun to talk music. All right, gentlemen, we'll see you. And what's next on the channel? God only knows. There's always something. So stay tuned. More on the way. So we'll see you. See you, gentlemen. Thank you.